If you have Crohn's disease or know someone that is dealing with Crohn's disease, know that there is hope. I share with you the 5 root causes of Crohn's disease because if you really truly identify the root, you're actually going to clear this condition effectively.
You're watching the Dr. Jake podcast.
I'm Dr. Jake. I'm an naturopathic medical doctor and integrative physician in Salt Lake City, Utah. On this channel, I'll share how you can heal your body down to the root cause and get your energy back without any harmful drugs or surgery. Be sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. I recently filmed a podcast with my co-host Teresa Marie in which we talked about the 5 root causes of Crohn's disease. Make sure you stick around to the end because we're going to be talking about the most number one root cause that I see in every one of my patients that I have, and it's going to be very interesting for you. Yeah, so Crohn's disease, what it is, it's an autoimmune condition, and we've talked a lot about autoimmune disease on this channel, but we haven't specifically talked about autoimmune condition of the gut. So what this is the immune system is actually attacking the gut. With irritable bowel syndrome, the immune system's not necessarily going out and gobbling it up and damaging the gastrointestinal tract. Now, there is some inflammation in there because of that, but many times there's poor digestion, there's a lot of gas or bloating, or there's other bugs hanging out in there that's causing an issue, but it's not actually causing trauma. And Crohn's disease is an actual trauma to the colon and a piece of the distal ileum of the small intestine. And it's a lot more severe than like IBS. IBS is horrible and doesn't feel good at all, and it's a problem. But Crohn's disease will lead to you having to get portions of your colon cut out. And then you might have a colostomy bag or this little poop bag out there. So it can be a big problem when it's not really taken care of appropriately. And we really want to get this condition under control. And it's going to be really fun to talk about that because people can be really in bad shape when they're actually not treating this effectively. And I've been able to help so many patients dealing with this condition and not have to depend upon immunosuppressive medications forever.
Now, if somebody has like IBS or colitis, if they don't take care of it, can it lead to Crohn's disease?
Yeah, there is a potential there. So a lot of the potential causes to IBS are causes of Crohn's disease. So it can potentially lead to Crohn's disease if the immune system gets way out of whack, for sure.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I think anybody who really has a gut issue, whether they have Crohn's disease or not, might want to be listening to this episode,
Uh-huh.
sharing it with their friends and so forth who might be having it, because I think this is going to be important to prevent it as well. You can prevent those root causes from taking over, then obviously you can also prevent the disease as well as obviously healing from those root causes if you have
Hmm.
it. So we're dealing with the gut specifically in Crohn's disease. And so a lot of what we're going to be talking about really are as it pertains to the gut. Given that it's the most common that you often see with a lot of your patients, that they have what you call gut bugs. There's viruses or some sort of bugs that are in their intestines.
Yes, it's very common that I see gut bugs with Crohn's disease. So let's start with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So we talked about how part of Crohn's disease is the distal ileum. And Crohn's disease, we talk about it that it's a portion of the colon, it's a portion of the small intestine. We don't talk about that it can affect other portions of the intestine. It can over time. It keeps on growing out and out and out and really cause a big problem. But small intestinal bacterial overgrowth is when you have bacteria hanging out in your small intestine that's not supposed to be there. This causes a ton of inflammation in your gut lining, and this can lead to Crohn's disease, where your immune system gets out of control. It starts attacking that specific out of area too much and causes way too much trauma. So we want to make sure we find and eliminate SIBO if it is there. You could have like E. coli hanging out in there that's not supposed to be in there. You could have chronic Klebsiella. You could have overgrowth of Candida that's not supposed to be there. There's all these bacterias or funguses. There's certain gut viruses that could be hanging out in there. Could be causing all kinds of problems too. So a big piece of what I do when I'm trying to treat people with Crohn's disease is rule out these certain infections. And it's very common that I see certain infections hanging out in there that I have to eliminate.
What I'm just thankful for is to know that this is something that can actually be eliminated. That it's not something that you have to endure, and it's just like, this is what happened to me, and now I'm a victim of it. Like, you can actually heal from these gut bugs.
Mhm.
Okay, so the other thing that can affect your gut is toxin exposure. Now, obviously, we're all exposed to toxins all the time. What are the toxins that can specifically affect the gut or Crohn's disease?
Toxins in general are going to cause problems throughout your entire body and potentially lead to Crohn's disease. But some big ones that I want to talk about are certain things that you're going to be getting direct contact with your intestinal wall, and that's going to be certain foods you're eating and the water you're drinking. So you want to make sure you filter your water because chlorine can be really traumatizing to the gut. First of all, it can sterilize your gut, and we'll talk about why that's a problem in the future. But what it does is causes chronic inflammation in your gut. And the more inflammation we have in there, more potential immune system is going to go crazy and lead to the Crohn's disease. We also want to, formaldehyde can cause certain inflammatory issues too. So we want to make sure we filter that out. There could be certain pesticides or herbicides in our drinking water that aren't being eliminated when they just go through the tap water. So you want to make sure you get a good quality filter specifically for that too. So yeah, those are some of the things there. And then there's foods. Obviously, there's pesticides, herbicides. We want to make sure we eliminate those because if we get a lot of those causing trauma to our gut lining, that can lead to Crohn's disease. So you want to eat as clean of a diet. Keep out these certain chemicals that are on food. Try to eat it in its pure form as most as you can. Also, we want to make sure we decrease that packaged foods because these have all kinds of certain chemicals in there that could cause damage to the gut lining. So we want to try to eat more fresh fruits, vegetables. I know when you're in a flare, you don't want to eat a lot of fiber and stuff like that. But when you're not in a flare, these things can be really good in helping your gut lining.
So is there truth then in eating organic fruits and vegetables, given the toxins and so forth that are sprayed on produce that are not organic?
So organic doesn't mean you absolutely aren't getting any type of chemical on your food, but it's going to be a better chemical than what the herbicides and pesticides they're spraying on non-organic. So it is very important to get those organic foods in your diet.
And then I think what you're just saying makes a good point that even if you buy organic, you still want to wash your produce,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Hmm.
All
Hmm.
right. Let's move on to the next one. And this one is actually one that I had learned about in my own journey, and that's dysbiosis. So I know that a lot of us, we've been taught, we have good bacteria in our body. We need good bacteria in our body that lives, in our gut. But how can dysbiosis be an issue? What is it, and how can it be a problem?
Yeah, so dysbiosis is just a fancy word we use for that you don't have enough good bugs hanging out in your gut. So we have a lot of symbiotic organisms in our gut, in our large intestine, that is going to help our immunological well-being, help our body digest food, balance our immune system, etc. When we eliminate these good gut bugs hanging out in there, we don't have that good immunological effect happening anymore, and then your immune system is going to have more likelihood to cause problems. Also, it's going to increase your potential to get all these bad bugs that aren't supposed to be in there taking residence. Our good bugs act as like this wall. If we have a lot of good bugs hanging out there, it's going to be very difficult for these bugs that aren't supposed to be there to take residence. They're just going to get out and eliminated. But if we start eliminating a lot of these good bugs hanging out in there, the bad bugs will start taking residence and they will become part of that wall and cause a lot of trauma to our gut lining. So it's a big piece to make sure we get a good amount of probiotics in our diet, no matter what, but especially with someone that is dealing with Crohn's disease, to make sure they get those good bugs in there while we're killing off these bad bugs. Maybe they don't have bad bugs yet and they just have the not enough good bugs. So it's very important to get those in there so we don't have further problems in the future.
Now, when you're doing labs on somebody to see whether or not they're dealing with dysbiosis,
Mhm.
are you checking for like the variety
Yep.
of good bacteria that they have, or the density, or like the amount of it?
I'm looking at both. So we many times order something called a comprehensive digestive stool analysis, which is going to be looking at more than just the good bugs hanging out in there. It's going to look for bad bugs. It's going to look for the candida. It's going to look for digestive function, etc. But we're looking for specific bugs that we see that are supposed to be in the gut that are symbiotic organisms, and we like to see them. That we like to have a good balance and variety, and also we would like to see them on the higher range there, not on the lower range of normal there.
Does there tend to be like a probiotic for any type of bacteria that you have a low amount in your body?
I mean, it's quite common to be low in lactobacillus. Nowadays, a lot of people are taking lactobacillus, but it's less common. Bifidobacterium can be a very common one that I see. And there's a lot of research on those specific bacteria forms. And those are probably the most common ones we prescribe because there's so much research on it. Usually, what I recommend is I do prescribe those, but then I prescribe other various forms of probiotics because the research is new and we're probably not going to have very good research on this for several years, maybe 20 years. It keeps on growing. This research is very new. It's been around maybe 30 years, really understanding our gut bugs and the effect on the body, even though naturopathic physicians have been talking about this for hundreds of years.
Right.
But actually, in the research, only for about 30 years now. So there are bugs that we see be beneficial, but are there other bugs that would do the same thing? So I like to just get a broad spectrum probiotic. I do the Lactobacillus bifidobacterium, and then I get another one and keep on modulating the probiotics that people get. I also like to make sure people get fermented foods and things like that to get a variety of good organisms.
So finding a good quality multi-strain probiotic can be really helpful then it seems
Mhm.
like with this particular situation. Good to know. Okay. So the fourth root cause that you have on here that I mean, I think a lot of people with Crohn's can see, yeah, I definitely have this. And I think that many of them might have thought, well, I have this because I have Crohn's. But indeed it's you have Crohn's because you have this. And that is food sensitivity and inflammatory foods. How does this
Yeah.
play a role in it?
So this is a big one. Obviously, no one with Crohn's disease is not going to have a food sensitivity. They are going to know certain foods that are causing the problem. Many times, if they've just gone to a conventional doc, they've just talked about them about certain seeds or certain fibers that they need to eat. So pretty much they just say, hey, don't eat healthy food anymore and you're going to be good. And that's not really going to help fix the problem. That's only maybe going to be a decent thing to do when you're actually on an immunosuppressive medication and maybe you won't get a flare up because there won't be any sticking happening along the digestive wall. But what we need to find out is what food is causing this inflammatory response. So we need to rule out, okay, is gluten causing a problem? Is dairy causing a problem? Is corn causing a problem? Maybe it's apples causing me a problem. Maybe it's almonds, these allergic reactions that might be happening to the body. What I do see is I always like to eliminate inflammatory foods. And the most common ones are certain grains. The big ones are gluten and corn, but other grains can be a problem too. We want to make sure we eliminate refined sugar like cane sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and then we eliminate dairy. These are the big inflammatory pieces. But we do want to find out the specific food sensitivities you have also to really calm down that inflammatory reaction that's happening in the gut. Because if you don't, that inflammatory process is going to continue and continue and continue, and you're never going to get over this condition. But if you take away these foods that are constantly causing this inflammatory condition to your gut, we could start healing the gut again.
Now, for somebody with Crohn's, and they go through these protocols. They've addressed the gut bugs in their body. They've eliminated the toxins. They're taking their probiotic and trying to balance any dysbiosis that they're having. They've eliminated the foods that they're sensitive to. They've eliminated inflammatory foods and so forth. Is there a time in the future where they might be able to enjoy a pizza again?
There is a possibility there. I'm not going to say absolutely there. I just see these things could be big problems. Maybe you can have a little piece of pizza and it's not going to be causing a big problem, but people just need to play around with it. Some people will, some people won't. But if you're like someone that's like, I really don't want to deal with a flare up because I know it's so horrible, my recommendation is probably pizza is not going to be your friend
Right,
in
right.
majority of people.
Maybe stick to that cauliflower crust with
Yeah, you're
with the
going to
olive
probably feel
oil
better.
base and
Yep.
something to that effect, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Mhm.
this last one, is one that you deemed as the number one. You see it anytime you have somebody with Crohn's disease, they have this condition every time, and it's healable, which is very, very hopeful, I think, for me as I knowing so many people in my friends and family who are dealing with this, and that is leaky gut. What is leaky gut, and how does that play a role in Crohn's?
So it's pretty obvious for those that actually understand Crohn's disease or are dealing with Crohn's disease that they likely have a leaky gut. Is there's so much inflammation hanging out in there. The immune system's gobbling up portions of your small intestine and large intestine. So that's obviously you're going to have all these little holes hanging out, bigger holes than a lot of people do have with leaky gut syndrome. You're going to have really large ones. It's going to be extremely fluid between your GI tract and your bloodstream. So you're going to be more at risk for just infections in general. So you want to make sure you take care of these gut bugs. but also you're going to get all these foods that aren't fully digested getting into your bloodstream. The toxins are going to get in there much more readily and make get in the bloodstream, make your immune system way overstimulated. So many times people dealing with Crohn's disease, they have another autoimmune condition because that leakiness is so rampant. So it's a huge portion of my protocol is we need to make sure we take away the causes of the leaky gut syndrome, which we already talked about, the gut bugs, the food sensitivities, the toxic exposures, etc. But we also need to prescribe certain substances that will start healing up that gut lining is very important, like glutamine, zinc, carnosine, inositol, glucosamine. Make sure we decrease inflammation with turmeric and boswellia to get that under control. Because if we don't get that under control, it's going to lead to further problems in the future, and it's going to lead to the immune system never calming down. So I see this every time. There's no way you don't have Crohn's disease. If you have Crohn's disease, you don't have leaky gut syndrome. It's happening. If you want to learn more about autoimmune diseases like Crohn's disease, click the video to the right. I'm Dr. Jake, and I'll see you there.